tune's running again.
Nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down. My brothers on the ground, I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me.
Oh, hi. All right, man. How you doing? Sorry, your ex is here. I didn't realise. Right, cool. Anyway, hi everyone. Hello. This is Scottish Rugby podcast. Is everyone like? We've had some technical glitches at the beginning there. Hello, Rory. Can you hear me? I don't think Rory can hear me.
I can hear you.
Sorry, I got very confused.
I wasn't sure if Rory was just playing some comic timing thing there. Hello, right?
Yeah. My comic timing is not that good.
I think we're sound now. Good morning, evening, afternoon. Delete as applicable when you're hearing this. It's the Scottish Rugby podcast. I'm Iain Hay. Hello. Technical gremlins aside. You know what? I should actually be perfect sounding this week because I finally have my new broadband put in, so there will be no kind of things going on. Well, actually, that's just how I speak. But things should seem technically more proficient. It's just the content is going to be the issue.
That's yet to be proven.
Well, it depends who's doing the proving. Yes, we are the Scottish Rugby podcast, part of the Sports Social Network. We're available on Patreon. Now, see this intro patter, our Commander-in-Chief, Rory, has written a document about it and sent it to me earlier. However, it needs some kind of special access to read it, so I wasn't able to. But joining me tonight as we go on this quest through the murky path of Scottish rugby. First of all, like I said, it's Rory Baldwin. Hello,
Good
Rory.
evening. How are you?
Well, I've explained about my dodgy foot. Yes, we're sorry for not being here last week. There's only going to be a couple of us, and my foot, I've hurt myself, and I was in excruciating pain, and I couldn't be bothered. So we've got a bit of a bumper pack. Obviously, we're doing the Scotland-Fiji squad announcement, larger Scotland squad announcement. And Rory, it's the first time you've been here for a while. Where have you been?
Don't really have a good answer. I mean, the main good answer is I haven't been watching rugby really, so I didn't feel that I had much to come on and talk about. But I was watching the WXV2, enjoyed that, and I've got back into the URC, watched the last couple of rounds. I had loads of notes prepared for last week, less so this week.
Well, last week we're going to put we're going to do the Edinburgh Glasgow games in the Patreon section, I think, because we have 2 rounds to catch up on. Also joining me tonight to discuss such things is the one and only Craig Manson. Craig, how the devil are you? How was Japan? He's been on holiday, by the way.
Yeah, well, it was a business trip, of all things. But I did. When I say it was business, I visited the Kawasaki factory for a day, and then the rest of it was sightseeing and drinking. So it was a great trip. I've always wanted to go to Japan, and I was very lucky to be invited by Kawasaki to go out there. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
See, I didn't realise it was business. I need a new job, seriously.
Well, I was originally on holiday for the first week because I'd actually booked my holidays, and then it's a long story about it. We got the opportunity to do it, and it just slipped into the end of my holidays. So I actually got 2 weeks holidays of the week. So, but let's just say that the amount of recovering I've had to do with jet lag, which I never thought was a thing. I always thought jet lag was just nonsense. But this week has proven me a different way. And I have been the amount of recovering I could do by another week off.
Couldn't we all do with another week off? That was jet lag's a bit weird because when I went from LA to Auckland for the Rugby World Cup, I lost an entire day. So I left on the 30th of August and arrived on the 1st of September because of like the 19-hour time difference.
Yeah.
But no, I think nowadays I just tend to try and drink through it, or there's usually just like I have to go back to work a couple of days later. I was like, I'm just gonna have to deal with this. Anyway,
yeah,
right, we're not here.
Deal with it, unfortunately.
Right, we're not here to talk about jet lag, are we, gentlemen? Although it's lovely to catch up with you. We're here to talk rugby balls. We'll start off with some news. Very sad news from Scottish Rugby, the World Scottish Rugby today. Well, sorry, this week. Ken Macaulay, retrospective cap number 1215. Former lock who spent the majority of his career at Gala, over 300 games, over 13 years, and was a coach at North Berwick. The day after he had completed over 1,000-mile plus cycle charity ride round visiting all the clubs in Scotland. Unfortunately, tragically, the day after that, he had a heart attack and has passed away. So we send our deepest condolences to his wife Pat and his children Richard and Joanna, and everyone who was everyone who knew and loved him, essentially. So here's to you, Ken. Godspeed him. That's the sad news out of the way for now. Retrospective cap number 1215 after playing against I think it was it's an All Blacks 15 who I think would now be sort of technically classified as the Maori squad. And speaking of Scotland cap players, Alex Stewart is one of the beneficiaries of the SRU. The SRU have announced that there are going to be 45 FIBO contracted players who will be given financial help for development through their pathway. Alex Stewart being one of them, who has really burst onto the national scene. She's only 19 years old, playing for Kirstoften Cougars, who are currently romping it in the Women's Premiership, 10 wins out of 10. On the gent side of the club game, we've got Ayr 9 out of 9. So I think we're seeing a bit of a split in terms of, I don't want to say class because that sounds rude. But we're noticing a bit of a golf in classes. We'll skip this part. On to the national team, because this is what people are the bread and butter of what we do here. Scotland's autumn series kicks off on Saturday against Fiji. The squad was announced last week of 40. Was it 45 or 46? 45, wasn't it?
I think I'm not entirely sure. I had it in front of me there for a second, but it's a lot.
Loads of folks. And you know what kind of annoys me is, like, see when they do it, because it's just forwards and backs. Obviously, there's a bit of versatility, but it can be sometimes a wee bit annoying to try and go, right, who's all the loose heads? Where's the tights?
45.
So, included in that squad, there's some inclusions which we're surprised by, some exclusions which we'll get onto, but we'll involve this as part of the preview for the game against Fiji, because the team was announced today. Now, obviously, because this technically falls outside the international window as designated by World Rugby, but it's put on because we're desperate for the ticket money. Non-Scots-based players are not involved in the squad. There's one exception in Dylan Richardson, who's on the bench at hooker. He plays for the Sharks, yes. No, Lions, sorry. He's playing in South Africa because of, like, URC seasons are running concurrent. That's why they've. I thought it was actually very nice that they've said that he can play this weekend. They didn't have to. They could say that he had to stay at the club. But so I will go through the starting 15. Like I said at the start of the show, I'm going to go from 1 to 15. I'm going to go through rows. And so obviously I'm starting with the front row, and I'm going to ask you, Rory. No, I'm not. Front row, Craig Manson. We have starting props are Pierre Schumann and Xander Fagerson. Who else would we expect, really? And then bench-wise, now this was where I thought things were going to get interesting, because, for example, Jamie Batty's come back to Glasgow and he's doing particularly well. We all remember John having a bit of a run-in with him. But on the bench at loosehead is Rory Sutherland, and then tight head-wise is Darcy Ray. Craig, obviously, Skewy and Xander. I mean, I've also got a list of how many caps each of the props have. Zooey and Xander, now that particularly VP Nell's retired, the most experienced guys in the team. Were you expecting anything else?
It's one of those situations where you look at it, and I've got a feeling that both Darcy, well, obviously you've got the situation where probably the players that would normally be in the main team or on the bench are busy with their English teams, or their well, especially, for example, Miller Mills, for example, he's busy this week. Oh, or it's out of the window, so he can't actually. He's not allowed to play, even though they're not playing this weekend, if I'm right in saying. Yeah, I think Darcy Ray and Rory Sutherland are getting an opportunity to come on and see what they're going to do, because I think obviously Suz needs to prove himself fit and able, and I think Darcy Ray, well, it's one of those situations where I watched Darcy play at the Edinburgh game 2 weeks ago, and he was decent. He did a decent job. But once the bench came on, they proved that there is a fairly big gulf between himself and others. So it's one of those things. I think it's just I wouldn't like to be disingenuous towards Fiji and say that Townsend is kind of putting together a team to try different people out, because obviously when you look at the team, there's a lot of players there that would slip into the next team and probably go and play South Africa. But I'm sure he's just I don't. So that's where I think, for example, Jamie Batty isn't in the team, because Townsend's giving someone else an opportunity to prove themselves and see if they can handle being back in to the international squad. So we'll wait and see. Sorry, that's a bit rambling, but I'm still a bit kind of taken aback that Darcy Ray's in the team.
Yeah, well, so like I said, I'm going to go through the extended squad as well, maybe see who will fit in. I mean, Schoeman and Zander, right? They're going to start in the big boy games against the Wallabies and South Africa. But then against Portugal, and even sort of bench wise, obviously there's we can't have we could have English based players. They're just being difficult. Or are they? The English Premier Leagues, are they playing this weekend?
I don't think they're playing this weekend because England are. Yeah.
Oh, because they're playing the All Blacks. Yeah. So other options at loose head are we've got Jamie Batty,
Nathan
Macbeth. Yep,
that's them,
and that's it. And then tight head wise, well, I think like between Batty has 34 caps, Nathan Macbeth has 2. Then we go tight head, and then we've got Will Hurd with two caps again. Elliot Miller was 5 caps. Darcy Ray 1 cap. So tight head is arguably the kind of the most barren of crops to find very good ones from, isn't it? And that's why like the SRU have started a sort of campaign almost scrum school. Craig, are you concerned that we have a lack of a bomb squad, for example?
Yeah, because you've got one of the best tight heads in the world in Zander Fagerson, and unfortunately, if you want to be taken seriously or be shown to be taking a game seriously, you have to play him. And it's going to get to a point where Zander's going to be either get injured or he's going, God forbid, or he's going to have to sit back for a couple of games because he's knackered. And I think we need to build this up. Now, obviously, Miller Mills has shown himself as actually a very, very good tight head. Along with Will Hurd is actually a very good tight head as well. That I don't think there's a bit of a gap between them and Zander, to be perfectly honest. But they're good players. But again, we fall foul of this. They play for these English clubs, so we're going to keep them here, even though they're not meant to play this weekend, but you're not paying us enough money to let us release them. So I think it's just one of those situations where we could, we could do with getting the players up and getting into the squad. So, I think we've got some decent players there, but I really do think, and as you just asked, I am concerned about the lack of depth when it comes to that. You also got to remember that, and whether we like it or not, Jamie Batty isn't the youngest player in the world playing at loose head. So yes, you've got Nathan Macbeth there, who is a bit younger, but you've got to remember that there's no. I would like to have seen maybe in this squad a couple of young lads coming through, maybe 19, 20, 21 year olds that are coming through the under 20s, under 20s, and giving them a bit of time in camp, if you know what I mean, to see if they can muster it up.
I mean, Zander seems to be a bit of a freak of nature in that he's come through at such an early age when most props hit their peak, sort of mid-20s later on. Rory, of course, one of the biggest controversies, I would say. Iain Ashman starting at number 2 hooker. Then his replacements will be Patrick Harrison, Edinburgh, and Dylan Richardson. There is no place for Johnny the Try Machine Matthews. And I might go into a bit more of that in the Patreon section so I can swear. Right, Iain Ashman, Rory, what do you think of that selection? What do you think of the selections? And do you think that Johnny Matthews has been dealt a pretty crappy hand? Or
it's a tricky one because I think we sort of touched on it in the summer tour, and Townsend did seem to like he was saying, okay, that World Cup cycle's done, and he's clearly trying. He's recognised that there's, particularly in the front rows, as Craig has talked about, there are quite a few positions where we've got one, maybe two guys who are pretty good. And then there's a big drop off, and there's been not many younger players pushing through, and perhaps that's lack of opportunity. So you could sort of argue that the reason Patrick Harrison is in is because he's had a promising start and is needing some more experience in international squad level. Whether he gets much in the way of game time, I don't know. Johnny Matthews is on the older side, but you can't really deny the form that he's kind of been in for, well, at least, a couple of years, more than that. I mean, he is a try machine, but for some reason Townsend just doesn't seem to want to pick him. I think maybe if it was like and to be honest, this is, it's not like a World Cup squad where you're limited by numbers. He could have just taken 4 hookers for a bit of crack. But he's chosen not. I mean, Dylan Richardson's 25, Ashman's still pretty young. So, I mean, when was the last time you saw a Scotland squad without sort of a George Turner or a Fraser Brown picked at hooker? And we had the same kind of problem in the sort of generation before that, when it was just kind of Ross Ford all the time. And, Fraser Brown and Stuart McNally were the young guys and they couldn't get picked. So it may be that he's learned a lesson from looking at that, and has recognised that he needs to start getting guys a bit of test match experience earlier in their careers, so that, if Johnny Matthews retires, and obviously George Turner's away, Fraser Brown's retired, we're looking at Iain Ashman as the kind of the starting hooker, really, against the Springboks, unless he does like a half each between Ashman and Richardson at the weekend and says, right, whoever plays the best is getting the start against the Springboks. But Townsend doesn't usually go in for sort of games like that. So we're pretty much looking at, and Ashman's only got he's not got that many caps. I think it's like 15, 20 maybe.
Let me just have a wee switch if I can find the right tab. Iain Ashman has 19 caps, yes, so it'll be 20th cap on Saturday.
Yeah, so, while he's shown heaps of promise, and he's still very inexperienced. And I mean, you've mentioned the bomb squad already. He's going to be going up against 2 probably of the best hookers in the world when they face South Africa. So it's a tricky one. You would have thought Matthews would have been in there almost as like a emergency relief if things weren't going well. Then you could just give him a start, because if Ashman and Richardson both have shockers at the weekend, who are you going to pick to play South Africa?
Yeah, also, sorry, I've just noticed my power adapter's come out. Johnny Matthews isn't actually that old. I looked into that just as a World Cup cycle thing. He's 6 months younger than Ali Price. He's only just turned 31. And hookers...
They go a bit later.
Yeah, I mean, with the advancement of sports science and that, players' careers are longer. And Johnny, obviously, he's come up through the ranks, so he's not been subjected to extremely physical, nasty smash rugby throughout his career. Like I said, I'll maybe delve into that further, with
guess so,
stats
yeah.
and whatnot.
Yeah, we can talk around it as much as we want, though, Iain, and we can talk about this and we can talk about that, and etc., etc., etc. The problem you have is that it looks like Townsend just doesn't like him, because he's.
But what's not to like about somebody with a good line-out? Like he's got. Sorry for interrupting, but he has one of the best line-out ratios, and he scores lots of tries.
I'm just about to talk about that, though, Iain, and that's the situation. Is that we're looking at a player who's on form, who seems to be working well within the squad that he plays within, which will be one of which will be Xander Fagerson, who goes and plays every week out with and trains with. The issue, and I'm not saying that Townsend is justified with it. What I'm trying to say is the fact that he's been out to the World Cup with Scotland. He got an opportunity, not very much of an opportunity to play out there. He's come up with some excuse about he doubts, or he's got problems with Matthew's physicality. When it comes to he's concerned about Matthew's physicality when it comes to international rugby. I agree with Rory. And also, I'll say Tom English. I don't agree with Tom English very often, but I agreed with him today when I listened to him, and he's basically said, "You've got 4 props of both sides going. Why can't you just take 4 hookers and give them an opportunity? Because even on the most basic level, it'll silence a lot of the howls from the Weege about him, and it'll also allow him to get an opportunity to play, and everyone can then judge him. As you say, and his arrows seem to be good. He's great off the back of the rolling maul, and also out in the open he can run. Paddy Harrison is very, very similar, although he's a lot younger. Ashman is basically the guy who's inheriting the world at this moment in time when it comes to hooker for Scotland. And then Dylan Richardson, but we all know what Dylan Richardson can do because we've watched him we watched him tear it up on the tour in the Americas. So, I just think, and everyone's talked around this and talked around about this. Johnny Matthews. It looks as if he just doesn't get on with the coaches. Or the coaches have seen something in him, or he's done something and they've gone, nah, he's not getting picked, because they cannot ignore all of these things that everyone's talking about and all these fantastic things that everyone's going on about, telling us all how fantastic Johnny Matthews is. Well, why is he not in the squad? So there's something happened there, because it can't be anything. It's the physicality side of things and this, that, and the other. He's gone down to South Africa and he's beaten up the South Africans down in South Africa. So you can't ignore that, But Townsend can. Remember, Finn Russell was originally fifth on the.
Yeah, I mean, you can make up excuses to justify just about anything, can't you?
Yeah, very much so.
Well, but it's like when Gatland when he was excusing or explaining. It's when coaches say, "Oh, I'm leaving out for this reason," and then you go, "But that reason you've just said is statistically proven not to be true." Anyway, we'll skip on. We'll go to loose 5 because like I said, go roll. But
and who wants to talk about Johnny Matthews anyway? He's a Weege player.
Maybe Tooney doesn't like Scousers.
Well, there is that. Maybe he's had a bad experience going to.
Tooney's a Liverpool fan and Johnny Matthews is a Everton fan. That's the issue.
Could be that.
In the locks, I mean, lock-wise, we have. So it's Gilchrist and Cummings, experienced pair. Arguably, without the Greys, of course, Johnny Gray's omission is a bugbear for everyone, including Tooney. And then the sort of backup options, inexperienced. You've got Alex Samuel, Max Williamson, Gregor Brown, who's sort of that 5-6 hybrid. Kind of. I think Sam Skinner would probably have been picked if he was injured in that position. But yeah, like Ewan Johnson as well at Oyonnax.
Alex
Craig Scarlets, who rumoured might be a Richie Gray replacement at Glasgow, but I'm not entirely sure if Glasgow need that. What with Brown and Williamson and Samuel coming through, just creating a bigger logjam. So Rory, that's the experienced pair. Also, then I'll hit the back row, because obviously the back row is like Scotland's biggest strength and depth. Thankfully, Matt Fagerson's passed his HIA after taking a bang last week, so it's Fagerson, Darsh, Dempsey, 6, 7, 8. Other options off the bench: Freddie, young unheralded Freddie Douglas, 19-year-old lad who's, he's there to hit tackle bags and get experience. You'd think he'd maybe get a few minutes against Portugal. Former captain Jamie Ritchie, who is still the turnover king of the URC, doesn't seem to be doing a lot more though, which is probably why the Glasgow boys are starting. Luke Crosby, he's kind of flitting in and out of the Edinburgh team. Ben Muncaster, of course, the guy who I'm a big fan of, Edinburgh. He's one physical lad. Rory, those 5 at the back of the pack. Any surprises, and then are you expecting anyone to come in, replace? Obviously, against Portugal, you might get some of the younger guys given a chance. Would you expect any difference?
I mean, probably. I'm sure there were some voices somewhere saying that Hamish Watson should have been included, but I think, again, as I've said, Tooney is maybe not in the entirety, but certainly with the fringes of his squad, he started to move on to start building the next generation of the team. Freddie Douglas is an interesting one, because I don't think he hasn't played a game for Edinburgh either, has he?
No. I don't think so. No, yeah.
No.
That was certainly the kind of the headline.
He's the new Adam.
I mean, he was, he'd been impressive for the the under-20s and so on. It would be interesting to see, but I think it's interesting that he's picked probably the first choice back row, to turn out against Fiji. It's a weird. When I was looking at the squad, it's a weird selection for a game. Like normally, autumn internationals against Fiji, you wouldn't say go as full noise as you can, but that's kind of what he's done with the team as a whole. Apart from obviously the players that you can't pick, like Finn Russell, and probably Blair Kinghorn. So that's he's gone Gilchrist and Cummings, and then the URC winning back row. There's perhaps an argument that Ritchie comes into that. There was perhaps an argument that Muncaster is in good enough form to slot in at 7, but I think probably he's going to go against the Springboks. He's going to go with a unit that kind of knows each other well, and that's probably why he's given them a warm up this weekend.
I think the other unfortunately, I should say, is Andy Onyama Christie, who suffered a very nasty injury a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I think he's the only one that could realistically, on form, break that into that Glasgow back row starter. Right, we will now move to the half-back pairing. Like Rory said, Finn Russell, the Messi of rugby. The best Scottish player of all time, without doubt. I love that man. He's unavailable, so Adam Hastings, who isn't particularly even Glasgow's first choice 10, he's going to start at 10, alongside Ali Price. Craig, as an Edinburgh fan, are you surprised that Ali? I mean, I think Ben Vellicott, although Ben Vellicott has been asked a different role to Price, he's always playing that kind of George Horn, guys were struggling, you've got 20 minutes, go and do something, kind of shock role. Price, over the last couple of weeks, his form has improved, but are you surprised that he's starting ahead of George Horn, for example?
Yeah, I think I'm hoping George Horn is being held back for some reason. As in, I think I'm hoping he's being held back for the bigger games. Yes, Ali Price, his form has become a little bit better over the last couple of weeks. But to be perfectly honest, there was only one way his form could go, and that would be upwards. I think if to if I'm going to be an Edinburgh complainer like a Glasgow complainer about Johnny Matthews, I think Ben Vellacott is the Johnny Matthews of Edinburgh. He's been brought up from he came up from the ashes of Wasps, and he regularly brings a huge amount from the bench for Edinburgh. When he's playing, our attack seems to come alive. And I'm hugely surprised he hasn't been given much time in the squad, in the Scotland squad, never mind getting a chance to have a cap as well. Looking at Ali Price, I'm surprised he's starting. Maybe Gregor's decided that he wants a safe pair of hands. Maybe he thinks that Ali Price has got enough in the bank to come in and do a job for them, or maybe they've decided to play a big aerial game because Ali Price has got a good boot on him, and he does. That's one thing that he does do for Edinburgh, which is very good, and that is box kick, box kick, box kick, box kick. Unfortunately, he box kicks and box kicks and box kicks far too much for Edinburgh, and so that those are the three kind of options. I think the reason he's there. He's definitely not there instead of George Horn to provide to provide go forward, because he doesn't provide go forward for Edinburgh. So it'll be an interesting one to see. I'll tell you one thing, and this will come, but you'll probably come back to this when we start talking about the rest of the back line. He will be called out quite dramatically if we see a phenomenal performance from Ali Price on the weekend compared to his club performances. And I think there's a few Edinburgh players that will have a bit of a target on their back if we see them play phenomenal games at the weekend for Scotland, and considering some of the dross that we've seen over the last few weeks.
That's the thing with big game players, is that you want them to have big game for Scotland, but they also, they have a day job to do, as you say, Craig, and it's sort of noticeable that the Doohan seems to have woken up in the last couple of weeks as well. Some of these guys clearly, it's the big games they kind of get out of bed for, but yeah, they need to be doing more than that.
Yeah.
So on the bench we have Jamie Dobie, the versatile man. Now, I was actually surprised because it's a 5-3 bench split. I was surprised to see Dobie pick ahead of Horn, given that split. If it was 6-2, because Jamie can play the wing as well, I wouldn't have been surprised. But Dobie is the replacement. And then number 22, Tom Jordan, who I seem to remember for the last couple of years when people have gone, when's TJ qualified? We thought it would be after this week, but see, there he is on the bench.
And we're trusting that that's the case.
Yeah, Tom Jordan, like I said, Hastings is starting at 10, but it's an interesting dynamic between Jordan and Hastings at Glasgow, because I think what we're looking at is two players who are very much sort of your overall rating. You'd say they're on par with each other. Hastings a bit more dynamic and creative, probably got a slightly more educated boot, whereas Tom Jordan is more physical, better defender, even though they're both liable for yellow cards. With Tom Jordan, it's usually because he's smashed somebody in the face. Hastings would be a lazy arm. So I think that's an interesting little compliment there.
I think, looking at the watching the Glasgow game at the weekend, obviously Hastings started that and Jordan came off the bench, which was the reverse of the weekend before. And it was quite interesting. I mean, you said there about Tom Jordan being a bit more physical. I think that actually maybe works well off the bench. Obviously, he's got that versatility of being a 10-12 as well, which is always handy for bench players to be able to cover a couple of positions. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes and whether that gets rewarded with more game time, or whether the Tunis just trying to pin him down, put the Scotland pin in him, and then move on to Finn starting and Hastings off the bench or something. When talking about the nines as well, the other one we didn't mention was Ben White, who's obviously not eligible this weekend. But I mean, you could there's probably a pretty good argument to say the two scrum halves next week could be White and Horn, and then the two from this week could take no part in it. You never know. It's Toonie tends not to be that sort of crazy, but for me, those would probably be the two that I would pick to assuming Ben White's in any sort of decent form. I've not seen much of him or any of him over in France this season.
No, I think he's incumbent as far as I see. I don't, like you, I've not seen a lot of top 14, but I believe things are going okay. Centres, I'll do with the centres. It's Huey Pilotu, Sione, Tui Pilotu. Gee, I'm running out of, I think I've got quite a wide vocabulary about saying nice things about people and about how wrong I can be. Tui Pilotu's just in incredible form. He's been made the captain as well. I mean, this is a guy who, since Franco Smith has come in, this is like him and Kyle Steyn are just, they've gone from people who I thought, all right, decent journeyman squad players to potential legends for Glasgow Warriors anyway, sort of relatively speaking. I mean, they won the bloody championship last year. Do you guys have anything else possible? Only nice things, Craig. Words of effusive praise for Huey Pilotu, or do you think there's anything that can break up that partnership?
There's absolutely nothing that can break that partnership. There really isn't, and this is the thing. We're talking about. I would love to have sat and argued about Tom Jordan being put on the bench at 10, and why this person or that person should be in front of him. But if you're looking at a URC winning squad, and you're looking at a squad that are currently running high in the URC, compared to the other Scottish team that are basically filled with Scotland internationals and are doing absolutely nothing at this moment in time, of course you're going to give these players a chance. But with Sione and Hugh Jones, that's a proven partnership who have excited and even when things are falling around us on the Scotland squad, when we're playing Ireland or whatever, that centre partnership is still the jewel in the crown, or the diamond in the rough, So there's nothing negative I can possibly say about those two players in a Scotland shirt,
Sione's brother Mosesi is in the squad, and also Matt Curry at Edinburgh. Curry, I like. I think he's got real potential, but I mean, to try to displace either of those two, then you've got Stafford McDowell as well, who's in the squad. It's an embarrassment of riches. Then we come to the wing spots. So it's Duhan and Darcy. Now, obviously, we've been over this a few times. We're talking about Edinburgh and how Duhan's a wee bit either sometimes anonymous, inconsistent, but then he still scores tries. He's finished against Cardiff a couple of weeks ago was excellent, but then he goes missing. Obviously, Kyle Steyn's injured. Kyle Steyn was the guy we were all talking about. Is he going to take that spot? But now Kyle Rowe is playing out of his skin. He's starting at 15 at the weekend. I've said I think that Duhan needs to have a really good game against Fiji. I think Toonie has a lot of trust in him, obviously, and I'm a big fan of Duhan and what he can do forward. I think sometimes his defensive game gets maligned in certain aspects, but he does have the turning circle of tanker, whereas Kyle Rowe is just rapid. I don't know, man. What do you think, Rory? I think Darcy's got a wee bit more leeway because he's coming back from injury.
Yeah.
But between Duhan and Darcy, something might have to give with Kyle Rowe.
Certainly when Blair Kinghorn's available next week against the Springboks, which obviously is the big game everyone's looking towards. It'll be interesting to see if indeed, like Duhan is perhaps a bit of a known quantity by the Springboks. We've seen in kind of recent years, other than against England, most other teams have been quite effective at sort of boxing him up a bit and kind of limiting his effectiveness. So it might be interesting to stick in someone like Kyle Rowe or Aaron Reid, who are a bit more, have got bags of pace and a bit more sort of unknown quantities. I think it'll probably still be Darcy, Kinghorn, and Duhan, to be honest. Obviously in the absence of Kyle Steyn, but I think from there probably Kyle Rowe on the bench, maybe against South Africa. Also in the centres we've got Rory Hutchinson as well, who again isn't available this weekend. But whether there's, I've sort of always kind of wanted to see a bit more of him in a Scotland shirt, but whether there's a space for him, as you say, I mean, it's so competitive in the centres now. And Tuipulotu Jr. looks like a bit of a talent as well. Again, I'm not sure he's quite ready to break through and where he's not going to displace his brother. But maybe one day we might see them playing 12-13 together. You never know. But yeah, for me it would be Tuipulotu and then the kind of the standard back three, if you like. I think most of the kind of first 15, when all the players are available, pretty much picks itself, apart from maybe an argument about Hooker, but then you can't really have the argument about Hooker because Matthews isn't in the squad. And 9, really. I think the rest of the bench. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done on the bench. I don't think the bench that he's picked against Fiji would you want them coming on against South Africa?
Well, I think you may go 6 to that. We can talk about that in the Patreon, I reckon.
Yeah.
Potential tactical things. Shall we call that the evening for this section? I think. Any complaints there, Craig? Anything else you wish to add?
No.
I thought maybe Harry Patterson would maybe get a 15 start against Fiji, because Fiji are missing some of their players as well.
Yeah. I think though Harry's just coming back from injury, and Kyle Rowe deservedly has been playing incredibly well. So I don't think I would say that Kyle Rowe deserves the chance. What I would say, however, is that you'll probably find that Duhan will perform better in the Scotland shirt. 2 reasons: he's a big game player, but also he actually gets the ball when he's playing for Scotland. Whereas in Edinburgh, they're struggling to get the ball out to the wings. So we'll wait and see. But I think Rory's pretty much bang on. I think you'll probably see throughout the autumn series there'll be very little variation in the back three.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's us for this section. Thank you for watching. I think 17 people watching, allegedly.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I should have dressed up.
There used to be more. I should have called this the spooky Scottish Rugby Log.
We could have done a Halloween wallpaper and all sorts.
I'd have dressed up as Eddie Jones. The man's a nightmare. Anyway, thank you for watching and listening. I think that's us. Predictions for Scotland Fiji. I'm going to go with a 25.1.
I mean that probably seems fair. Maybe, I don't know, 25 points would be. That's what I mean. Kind of, to be honest, with the team that he's put out, that's what we should really be expecting. And I guess the Fiji Rugby blog can clip this up and say that we're being disrespectful or whatever. But I mean, he's gone about as full noise as he can, and he needs to
fill Real Madrid.
And he needs to be. The next game's the Springboks. So if his mostly top team has a bit of a nightmare, there's not a lot of time to fix it. So I would be expecting. I think your score is decent, sort of 15, 20 points at least. We should be looking to win by.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think the big issue you have is that if it was Fiji with all their players that can't play this weekend because of it's out with the window, and also, for example, Bill Matter, who's injured, etc. at the moment, I think it's a closer game. But I've got a feeling, well, unless we absolutely screw the pooch and throw it away like we can do against these sort of games that we should win. But did we not the last game we played them? Did we not pump them to 50 anyway? So
55-20 something, 21, I think.
Yeah. So there's, I would just say we're expecting a 25-point game. I reckon it's going to be closer to about a 14-point game, but that's just because I'm a pessimist at the moment. I'm in a very pessimistic view.
This is jet lag.
I wonder why.
We'll talk about that next.
Cool. Right. So we're going to take a wee break. And then after that, we'll be back for the Patreon section. Other than that, thank you very much. And bonsoir, whatever. Right. Cheerio. See you. Cheerio. Am I hitting end stream as well then?
No, no, don't hit that.
You do that bit. Right.
I'll start that bit, yeah. Right, remove from X. Remove from X. That one.
Right. Just going to go on top.